If a small flock of cartoon bluebirds didn't help you get dressed this morning, that just means you haven't yet listened to Fine Tuning with Jim Hill and Drew Taylor. No, the black dress slacks, please. Thank you. And now, Jim Hill.
Welcome to Fine Tuning with Drew Taylor, your one-stop shop when it comes to animation news and commentary. I'm Drew's co-host, entertainment writer Jim Hill, and this is our first show for June of 2019. Drew, you are just back from the opening of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge at Disneyland Park, which you were telling me that you were kind of surprised at how big a component the Star Wars-related animation is to the land?
Yeah, it was surprising. I mean, first of all, I want to say that we missed you in Galaxy's Edge, Jim. Black Spire Outpost just is not the same without you there.
Jabba and I have this deal.
Yes.
There can only be two fat slug-like creatures in one place at any one time. But
I saw Dan Z there, so that was nice. I didn't get to see Len, but I saw Dan Z. Mm-hmm. So
okay.
He's following all the applications of his parole, and so he's doing well. So
this is true. Yeah. This is true. Yeah. So.
But yeah, I was shocked to see how much of the animated stuff is a component of this land. Mm-hmm. Obviously, there's the Hondo figure in the Millennium Falcon Q. Mm-hmm. There's actually dialogue from other characters from Resistance in the line for the Millennium Falcon. I don't know if anybody had told you that or you'd heard that.
No, really?
Audio. Yeah. There is a sleeping loth cat in, that's so cute.
Alice was just showing me the video for one of those, and don't they sell a Lothcat plush or a Lothcat puppet or something like that? Or
they do. They sell a plush that I think purrs when you touch it. It's really interesting to see the animation sort of come to life in this way and become really an integrated part of the Star Wars universe. It's a hoot. Let me just say that. And I think you're gonna love it whenever you get to the Black Spire Outpost of Batuu.
The official opening was on May 31st.
Friday.
Disney's live-action Aladdin did a pretty respectable $42 million in its second weekend, coming in second to Godzilla, King of the Monsters, which you, again, liked, right? Or
I liked it, yeah. Did you go see it?
Where Alice and I are going tomorrow.
Okay.
We will check in at that point.
But did you see Aladdin?
Not yet. Speaking of Aladdin, though, on the second half of today's show, Drew and I are going to be talking about Speechless, which is that song that Alan Menken, Benji Paskin, Justin Paul wrote for Jasmine and for the Guy Ritchie live-action version, which is a very powerful number, especially in this era of Me Too. But what's kind of interesting is this was the fourth try by Menken to come up with a Disney princess song. And I know that, from that interview we ran in last week's show, it's taken 30 years of trying to get the right song.
And he finally did it.
Okay, what else we got for news? We got Toy Story 4, box office projections. We're, 3 weeks out now from the Josh Cooley movie opening. And according to the folks at Fandango and Adam Tickets, Advance sales for Toy Story 4 already outpacing Finding Dory and last year's Incredibles 2. I guess the folks at Disney are saying the early tracking suggests somewhere landing between 100 million and 150 million, which seems a little vague to me, Drew.
It's a wide spread there, yeah.
Could be, the target we're going for could be Europe, could be Asia. I don't want to zero in at this point. I have to wonder, though, given that the early tracking for Aladdin suggested, 65 to 85 for its first weekend domestic release, and then it came in at 113 million. Do you think that Disney has begun deliberately lowballing?
I mean, they could. I don't think. I don't know. It's interesting that they're saying that it's going to outpace Incredibles 2. Mm-hmm. That just seemed like such a phenomenon.
Well, yeah, and that did $182 million in tickets sold for its opening weekend. When I hear 100, especially now on the heels of 65 to 85, and then to have Aladdin sell 113 million worth of tickets during its opening weekend, I can't help but think that maybe the tracking that Disney currently has in hand suggests that maybe Toy Story 4 isn't going to top Incredibles 2. Maybe it's going to do in the mid 170s. But the way to keep that from being spun as being a disappointment is if you announce a far lower figure and then it exceeds, like, hey, oh my God, it overperformed. There we go. There we go. So I guess we'll know in a couple of weeks, but...
Yeah, I'll be at the premiere next Tuesday.
Oh!
So, yeah.
At the El Cap again? Or
At the El Cap, yes. I will be in attendance. It's interesting to note that there is no short film attached to Toy Story 4. Which is kind of interesting. And also, did you see the runtime is only an hour and 40 minutes? As opposed to the 2 hours-ish of... I think Incredibles 2 might have even been over 2 hours. But anyway.
Wow.
So kind of some interesting things to think about going into Toy Story 4. But
okay. You got to wonder if some of this is their way of apologizing to exhibitors for the 3-hour and 2-minute run for Endgame.
Right. You're in, you're out. You get your
Get your
exhibitor
Cram
fee.
in there. And while we're talking about Pixar, the Onward teaser trailer dropped, and I loved a lot of what I saw for this teaser. I mean, how can you not love a movie that features unicorns basically as feral raccoons? But if I have one tiny little quibble, the characters that Tom Holland and Chris Pratt are voicing for this Dan Scanlon movie, did they have to look so much like Tom Holland and Chris Pratt? I mean, but at the same time, there was a lot to like. I mean, it looks fun.
Yeah, the world looks amazing. I mean, I love that opening shot of all the magical creatures and then a plane just flying through. Mm-hmm. It's so funny, and it looks beautiful, I think. I can't wait to see more of it.
I love the tag gag of cometh soon.
Right.
That generally looks like a lot of fun, though. Conversely, though, I don't know if you saw the Sonic trailer that had been redone by Arto Barnoff. He went back into the trailer that Paramount had created for that Jeff Fowler movie and reanimated just the scenes with Sonic, so it looked more like the cartoon.
Right.
You know, in a weird sort of way, it actually made me feel that much more sympathetic for Jeff Fowler, because there were a couple of scenes in it where it really looked great. I mean, the cartoon Sonic really looked great in the way the shots were composed, and then there were other ones where it's like, yay. I think the poor guys who are now trying to get this thing out the door and fixed by February, man, they got a job on their hands there.
Yeah, it's a bad situation any way you slice it.
Mm-hmm.
I think I talked about how I had spoken with one of the effects guys from Pikachu, and they said it was probably a matter of time, and they just didn't have enough time, and now they're getting slightly more time, but it might not be enough time. I don't know. The whole thing is just a bad scene. Yeah, I don't know what the answer is, but I don't envy anybody involved in that movie.
And speaking of characters that don't quite look right, Mickey's PhilharMagic has begun being shown at Disney's California Adventure.
Yes.
This is supposed to induce people who can't get into Black Spire Outpost that, well, don't worry about it. You can go over to DCA and you can see Mickey's PhilharMagic, or you can see the original version of Soaring. There's fun stuff to be had over there. Don't concentrate on that you can't get into the Star Wars land.
Right.
Now, you were saying that for California, they're projecting it digitally, right?
They're projecting it digitally, but it is cropped. It's not the same size screen as in Florida. Yeah, so it's actually the image is a little bit cropped, which kind of is bad, but yeah, they're introducing the digital version in Florida soon, but is this just like kind of like slapping lipstick on a pig? That animation was never really good.
But here's the thing that makes me crazy, Drew. Okay, so this movie debuts at a Disney theme park in 2003. By 2006, there was Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. I know it's television animation, but at least they figured out how to do Mickey, how to do the ears. So we are now 15, 16 years past the initial debut of this thing, and so the fix is still that Mickey is out of focus, so you don't concentrate on how bad the ears look. And out of focus in digital, sharply out of focus. Ugh.
Right.
For years now, I've been hearing that they were talking about swapping in new scenes, whether songs from Tangled, songs from Frozen. Can't they fix Mickey while they're at it?
It just seems weird. I don't know why they're bringing this old thing back too. I mean, I would rather see Muppets back there, but That's just me. We'll save that for our Muppet podcast, Feel and Felt. That'll be our
It's interesting you bring up the Muppets. Have you seen where Fathom is bringing the original Muppet movie out in theaters?
Yeah, I'm gonna go.
I actually got to see a very, very, very early cut of the movie back when I was managing a movie theater in Acton, Massachusetts. You used to be able to go into Boston to the Film Exchange. They gave you like 3 or 4 months out the chance to take a look at a movie and then decide if your movie theater was going to bid on whether or not you could get the Muppets. And there was this scene they actually cut out of the movie. You remember midway through where they run into Dr. Teeth and the Electric Mayhem?
Of course.
Okay. Well, this moment where they start to explain to Dr. Teeth and about what's going on for the first half hour of the movie, and Fozzie goes, wait, it will be so much easier. And he hands him the script of the movie. And the Dr. Teeth and Dr. Mayhem stand around the screenplay, and they do like this 30-second montage of, okay, so you fork in the road, and, the Doc Hopper, and it's like, okay, we're up to speed. And then they go, I guess it was one of those jokes where it played really well in the screening room in Boston, but from what I heard, that when they put it out in theaters, it kind of took people out of the movie.
I love that.
There's a part of me that really, really wants to go see that again, but at the same time, I wonder, is it going to hold up?
Yeah, I wonder that too, but it'll just be fun. I mean, I went and did the Fathom event this past Christmas where they showed a Christmas episode of Fraggle Rock and Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas on the big screen, which was really cool because that's one of my favorites. So I'm excited.
A quick side note here, but it does, given that all the time you spent living in Connecticut, did you ever get to the Goodspeed Theater when they were doing the stage version of Emmett Otter?
I remember when they did it, but I never saw it. Did you see it?
Yeah. In fact, I got to interview Paul Williams while they brought him in to do some new songs for the score. And
oh, God, I love Paul Williams.
Yeah, no, he's an amazing guy. Did you ever see that documentary, by the way, that Paul Williams is still alive?
Yes, I got to interview him for that. And I was wearing my Brian De Palma t-shirt and had him sign my... It was not out on DVD in America yet, but I had a French Blu-ray of Phantom of the Paradise that I made him sign. He was delighted.
Oh, that is so... No, he is such a great interview and such a sweet guy. Back to news run off here. Did you see this announcement of the Mark Webb directed live-action Snow White?
Yeah, I don't know what to make of that. He is not a great director. I'm just going to put it out there. I mean, the Spider-Man movies were terrible. 500 Days of Summer is fine, but he's never done anything that... I mean, I cannot believe that this is the guy they're trusting with the crown jewel of Disney animation. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, especially because there were so many other interesting versions that they had developed along the way.
Well, no, it's interesting you bring that up, because remember, there was, Snowstar? That was the one. In fact, I remember Ron Miller talking about this. This was going to be the follow-up to originally to Black Hole. It was going to be basically Snow White and the Seven Droids.
Right.
Taking the story and setting it in a sci-fi setting. And then you were talking about, who was it that wrote the screenplay for the Snow and the Seven, or the Order?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think Michael Arndt did one draft, who wrote Toy Story 3 and worked on Force Awakens. But I remember that Michael Chabon, who is the Pulitzer Prize-winning author of The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay, had a screenwriting credit at one point on that, which was supposed to be like the sort of Shaolin Kung Fu version, right?
That's it exactly. The gimmick was it was set in, 1890s China, was an English school, a mistress, I want to say, who ran afoul of a warlord and took off into the jungle and ended up in the care of 7 Shaolin monks. And at one point, the guy who did all of the Kung Fu sequences for Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon was attached as the director. And I mean...
Wu Ping, right?
Yeah, and it was just one of these things, from the outside, it just seemed so intriguing. And I guess for me... when you had those ideas on the table, why circle back to doing the movie you already made?
Yeah, I don't get it. And we were talking about the Dwarfs project on another show with Dopey looking like Conan the Barbarian and all that, which sounds great.
There's a wonderful story that was done over in Animated Views about this, where Mike Dissa, who was at Disney Toons working on this thing. This was supposed to be the appeal to boys project that would be sort of alternate between Disney fairies. That they're talking 2005 when this was in the works, so I'm thinking it had to predate the Disney Plane series, but they had initially sussed this thing out as a trilogy. There were so many great ideas, but what made Mike decide I'm not going forward with this project is evidently he had this meeting with a Disney executive who decided that there had to be a reason that Dopey lost his voice. The original 1937 Walt Disney explanation that he can talk, he just doesn't want to. But no, in the classic, now the cliche Disney version, evidently what made Dopey mute is that he saw his mother killed in front of him.
Oh, jeez.
So there was a trauma, and so that's why he can't talk.
Wow.
Yeah. Let's be fair. All right, Mark Webb is directing, but at the same time we got Mark Platt, producer of Mary Poppins Returns. He's also doing Cruella and Rob Marshall's Little Mermaid. So it sounds like there'll be top people working behind Mark. And in fact,
Right.
the guys who actually just worked with Alan Menken on the new songs for Aladdin, the Benj Pasek and Justin Paul, they're going to be doing some new songs. I don't know about this one. I especially on the heels of what just happened with Tim Burton's Dumbo. I mean, I know the original live-action remake that sort of started all this stuff, Kenneth Branagh's Cinderella, did well back in 2015, but I just wonder if this is going back to the well once too often here. Or the witching well, hey!
The witch. Well, you know that I just got invited to a press day for the Dumbo home video day that's happening next week.
Oh.
That tells you how quickly that is going to be
Wow.
coming out. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right, while we're talking about animated features and that sort of thing, press release came out while we were away announcing that Tom McGrath, who's done a lot of work for DreamWorks Animation, in fact, this was trumpeting the fact that with him agreeing to direct Boss Baby 2, this is now his 6th film for DreamWorks Animation, which made me think, well, who else has directed 6 movies? And it turns out one of the only people who's done this was Wooly Reitherman.
Well, sort of. That's with caveats.
That's an important thing to point out, because if you go back to Tom McGrath's career feature at DreamWorks, yes, he's directed 6 films, but he's only solo directed 3, Megamind, Boss Baby, and again, this Boss Baby 2, whereas the 3 Madagascar movies, 2 of those he co-directed with Eric Darnell, and then the Madagascar 3, Europe Most Wanted, he actually co-directed with Eric Darnell and Conrad Vernon. Now, and you're right about Wooly. Wooly was listed as the solo director of 101 Dalmatians, Sword in the Stone, Jungle Book, Aristocats, and Robin Hood. By the time The Rescuers rolled around, he had co-directors. He worked with John Lansbury, and Art Stevens. And then he was the director of record, at least initially, on Fox and the Hound, and then got taken off of that.
Yeah, he was kind of pushed off, from what I understand, for being too old-fashioned, but not that movie ended up being a cutting-edge tour de force or anything.
Yeah, this is true. And then on the Pixar side of the fence, John Lasseter actually is listed as the solo director on 5 films for that studio. The original Toy Story, Bug's Life, Toy Story 2, then Cars and Cars 2, and different universe. He would have been probably listed as the co-director on Toy Story 3.
But all those hugs just got in the way. Jim.
Oh, you're making friends left and right here. Okay, oddly enough, the most prolific directors in the modern era of animation, but it's a directing team, have to be Ron Clements and John Musker. From their first, The Great Mouse Detective in 1985, they wound up directing 7 films for Disney. But the last one, of course, Don Hall and Chris Williams are listed as co-directors. Given what a collaborative process is, and I think, you mentioned this as we get started here, that nobody does one of these films alone. What animation directing really is being the one who sits there in the room when you're picking the boards and say, all right, that one, not that one, not that one. I wish Tom well, because right now he's the only director of Boss Baby 2. Who knows when that movie finally comes out in 2021, whether he's still going to be a solo credit on that.
Right. Listen, I know you're chomping at the bit for Boss Baby 2, so I hope,
The other night, I caught like the last 20 minutes of it. Never seen the film all the way through, and it really had some fun design. How is it as a movie?
It's okay. The premise is pretty threadbare, which is shocking. I think there's already a TV show, and the fact they're making another movie, but it made a lot of money, so God bless them.
Well, speaking of TV shows, sadly, this month we're going to see, if the rumors are true, the sixth and final season of The Amazing Adventures of Gumball. The last episode is supposed to air on June 24th. It's again, it's one of those shows that there's 2 11-minute long segments. So the BFFs and the Inquisitions, and 240 episodes of this thing since it began airing.
One of the most underrated shows, I think, in animation.
I totally agree. I love the mix of elements, the clever writing, the overall look, and I'm almost embarrassed to admit how much I empathize with Richard, the father.
The rabbit?
Yeah, I feel like he's my spirit animal. It's just... So it does make me sad. Though, now you were mentioning the series finale for Star and the Force versus the Force of Evil.
Yeah, it was really touching. It was well done. I think that the show got a little lost in the latter seasons just with how much fantasy stuff was a part of it. It got very complicated. But I thought this had a nice, sweet, kind of emotional ending, and I think you should watch it on DVR or whatever. Yeah,
definitely. When we wrap up here, I'll go chase that down. And while we're talking about television news, we have one Cartoon Network show ending. We have another one. We Bare Bears they're getting a TV movie. They're getting a spin-off.
Can't wait. Wait, what is this? What is the spin-off about?
Well, evidently it's Grizz, Panda, and Ice Bear as little kids. They've done a couple of episodes that show them as younger characters.
Those are even cuter than the main episodes, so I can only imagine.
Well, while we're talking about children of a different nature, Aaron McGruder's Boondocks, which was a comic strip that I loved and then became a really biting, incredibly funny, but polarizing animated series on Adult Swim. And God, talk about a protracted production schedule. That thing debuted in November of 2005, and by the time it wrapped its 4th season, it was 2014. So, not exactly the pumping them out there, but there were 55 episodes, all beautifully written, all biting as hell, and really, really funny. And that was it until just recently, where John Witherspoon, the voice actor who did Granddad on the show, was on Joe Rogan's podcast, and he revealed he's been recording dialogue for new episodes.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
I wonder if they're actually going to be episodes, or if they're going to be something online, or what the deal is going to be.
Magruder he shut down the strip, but just this past year revived it in February, albeit briefly, to go after Trump, and I forget who else he went after, but there's been no word out of Adult Swim. This thing is totally running under the radar, so I'm really, really hoping that this happens. But I guess you're right. It's hard to predict where it's going to show up, whether it's streaming content or that sort of thing. But he seemed to suggest this was for Adult Swim.
I'm ready. Okay. I'm ready for it.
Well,
we got a new Gendy show coming on Adult Swim, and that I'm so ready for it.
Well, speaking of ready, Drew and I are ready to take our break. But when we get back from this break, we're going to talk about the songs Jasmine had for the various forms of the Aladdin movies and the stage shows and all that. And we're also going to talk about those Lion King posters that showed up.
Oh, yes.
So, all right, back in a sec, folks.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. It's Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and LifeLock has tips to protect your identity. Use strong passwords, set up multi-factor authentication, report phishing, and update the software on your devices. And for comprehensive identity protection, let LifeLock alert you to suspicious uses of your personal information. LifeLock also fixes identity theft, guaranteed or your money back. Stay smart, safe, and protected with a 30-day free trial at LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
This episode is brought to you by Paramount Plus. Paramount Plus has movies. So many movies. The movies you've seen 1,000 times and could watch 1,000 more. Iconic movies your friends can't believe you haven't seen. New movies, classic movies, new takes on classic movies. So whether you're into Top Gun or The Naked Gun, Mean Girls or Mission Impossible, Smurfs or Sonic the Hedgehog, there's a mountain of movies to discover on Paramount Plus. Start streaming today.
Try to be positive here, Drew, because just before you and I started recording today, we had that new teaser trailer drop for Jon Favreau's The Lion King. We get to see Beyonce's version of Nala in action. I actually thought it looked pretty good.
Yeah, I liked seeing Timon and Pumbaa talking.
Yep. Just today, the novelization of The Lion King showed up here at the house, and I had to see what they had for Timon and Pumbaa dialogue, and how it changed from Nathan Lane and Ernie Sabella. And there's a moment where they come across, there's the moment for the bowling for buzzards thing. And in the book, they describe how Timon and Pumbaa come up and it's like, oh, look, it's a ball of fur, and Timon is immediately, it's like, I'm a naked meerkat. The Knights of Chile, that fur is mine. So in fact, they talk about, how, should they raise him? Should they save him? And it's not always going to grow into be, a 500-pound killing machine that we're going to have to call, don't eat me. So I'm hopeful. But on the other hand, the 11 posters they put out.
Yeah, those were a miscalculation, I think. Because they look so real. It looks like a Disney nature poster. I mean, those might as well be the next Disney nature movie. There's no personality to any of them. It's really weird and kind of eerie, I think.
I was actually looking at them, and it was one of these things where when you're looking at full-grown Simba and realize that he's virtually indistinguishable from Mufasa, and it's just a little like, well, of course, dumbass. That's a story choice. And in the original movie, there's that moment where Scar, as Simba comes back, mistakes Simba from Mufasa. But yeah, in poster form, it's just sort of like, this is definitely would have been a less is more situation. But given the 30 posters that Disney put out ahead of Avengers Endgame, is this a thing now? You wallpaper the characters out there and that's what they think gets people to go into a theater as opposed to a story?
That is a question for the marketing team. That is not something that we can answer. But yeah, it's not the best approach, I don't think.
Okay. Well, speaking of interesting ways that Disney markets movies, in the past week or so, we've seen them put out a big chunk of Speechless, which is Jasmine's song, the new song that Alan Menken wrote for that film, again with Benji Pasek and Justin Paul, the guys who did Evan Hansen for Broadway and also wrote the songs for the Hugh Jackman movie for Fox, The Greatest Showman. Naomi Scott does a wonderful job with this. It's a good, strong power ballad, and it's at a moment in the Aladdin story where there's never been a song before. I mean, it's like the third act.
Well, there's a little bit of a thing at the beginning, and then they bring it back more towards the third act. Yeah, you would know this, Jim, if you actually went and saw the movie. I know. So I just want to.
I'm a bad person. We've established that.
That's
what's
true.
Interesting for me about this song is that it's clearly of the time we're in. I mean, that if you think about where we are, our national conversation is, Me Too and that sort of thing. This is the song that works for this time, for this story. But if you go all the way back to 1987, when Howard Ashman is putting together the very first 40-page treatment, he's there at Disney writing music with Alan Menken for The Little Mermaid. That whole notion of the Ike and Tina Turner thing that he wanted to do at Disney, that fascinated me. So I went out digging online, and I found the actual 40-page treatment. Somebody had found it, scanned it, put it up online, and oh my God, Drew, it's a funhouse mirror take on Aladdin. I mean, there's so much stuff that's in the film from 1992, but at the same time, there's so much that's a radical departure. How Howard Ashman originally envisioned Jasmine. In that version, she's not a role model by any stretch of the imagination, Drew. He actually describes her in the sort of the character breakdown as this purely comic creation. She's the ultimate in pampered, spoiled brattiness, and the actresses he was sort of putting out there is kind of a suggestion of what they were tone-wise. You think Madeline Kahn or Bernadette Peters in a really bad mood.
Right.
But again, this was the version of Aladdin that was supposed to be like one of those road pictures that Bing Crosby and Bob Hope did for Paramount back in 1940. And it's very different film, very different setting. I mean, for example, not in Agrabah. But as Howard described it, it's set in old Baghdad. Well, not old Baghdad. This is a zany, fanciful Baghdad of the imagination, somewhere between the fairy tale city of the classic The Arabian Nights illustrations and Pinocchio's Pleasure Island, a place that's alternately alluring and threatening, a place familiar from a lot of old movies and not just Arabian Night movies either. There's a hint of Humphrey Bogart's Casablanca and Marlene Dietrich's Morocco in this atmosphere, timeless but with a whiff of exotic 1930s and decor, music, and mood. Very, very, very different from the movie that we know today, with lots and lots of show business references. The original version of Aladdin, as he saw the character, wasn't the Tom Cruise lookalike, the kid who was up on the rooftop with a boo looking at the castle and, you know, someday things are going to change and we'll be rich and live in a palace and wish that people could see there's so much more to me, that sort of thing. And no, Howard went a different way. This was Matthew Broderick and Ferris Bueller.
Uh-huh.
This version of the character, only 15 years old, charming but irresponsible. All that this version of Aladdin wanted to do was play in the village square, and I mean play as in play music, with his friends Babcock, Omar, and Kazim. This is a movie that doesn't have one genie, it has two, the Genie of the Lamp and the Genie of the Ring, and the Genie of the Ring is actually in the Aladdin we know from 1992. The physical look of the character is the peddler, the character that Robin Williams does at the beginning, where he's Mesopotamian Tupperware guy. That's the second genie for the film, the Genie of the Ring. Whereas, again, Jasmine, in this version, she was a spoiled brat, you know, one that bragged how she had daddy, the Sultan, wrapped around her finger. And Ashman and Menken wrote an introductory song for this version of Jasmine as part of the movie, and it was called Call Me a Princess. And it's a deliberately comic number that gets across what a bad fit this version of Jasmine would have been for Aladdin. The song has lyrics like, call me a princess, I don't care, call me obsessed with nails and hair, only concerned with what to wear, shallow and blasé. And how about this, Drew, for a line that would never... I mean, remember how they cut out, what was it? Would they cut out your ear if they don't like your face?
Yes.
That line from the film between when the movie was in theaters and when the VHS initially came out. How do you think this line would play today? Soon I'll get married, what could be sweeter, to some Salim or Abdullah? Whoever he is, the two things he'll need are earplugs and plenty of moolah. So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what every little girl on the planet wants to hear.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. The reason that Howard and Alan wrote this song that way is that in this version of the Aladdin story, Jasmine and Aladdin weren't supposed to get together. It was actually the girl literally the girl who lived next door to Aladdin and his mom. Her name was Abby. In this treatment, Ashman describes Abby as, well, a tomboy, a cute, tough little street urchin, completely at home, hanging out with the guys. And again, the guys are Babcock, Omar, Kazim, and Aladdin, and secretly suffering from a mad crush on Aladdin. And Howard also notes in the script that his model for this character, how she would be portrayed and voiced and that sort of thing, was Judy Garland.
Okay.
But again, the Judy Garland that was in all of the Andy Hardy movies that mooned over Mickey Rooney, while Mickey Rooney only had eyes for Lana Turner. And all right. Anyway, jump ahead to 91. They are, 90% concentrating on Beauty and the Beast, getting that out the door. But at the same time, they are working on Aladdin because that's going to be the film that follows Beast. And Katzenberg is just not happy with the way Aladdin is shaping up. It's got too many characters. It's more snarky than sincere. And the other thing you have to remember is Disney, right after Mermaid came out, got letters from a lot of parents. They were upset that Ariel, at the first sign of this handsome young man, that this Prince Eric, throws over her dad, King Triton, as well as her 6 sisters, Atina, Alana, Adela, Arista, Adriana, and Dopey. I forget what the other one's called. So that's what's kind of interesting, is that if you understand that, they were getting those letters, so they tried to course correct with Beauty and the Beast. So think about what Belle does in Beauty and the Beast, that, she comes to the Beast Castle, she finds her dad in the dungeon, and she immediately offers to swap places with him because, this is a character who values her family above all others. And Disney thought, okay, we've addressed that issue. That's going to be fine. So no, now they get letters about Belle. Because it's like, oh my God, what sort of lesson are you teaching girls? That here's a girl who, she's bright, she's read, she has, she wants to have adventure in the great wide somewhere. And without a second's thought, she agrees to be a slave forever to this beast. And it's like, oh, crap. All right. And so that's why now they course correct from Beauty and the Beast. That's why when you get to the animated Aladdin and you have Jasmine as this fierce character who, well, do you remember the scene just at the end of Prince Ali where the Sultan and Jafar and Prince Abubu are, sort of like, oh, I'll charm her, I'll win her over. And Jasmine sort of comes into the room and like, how dare you? All of you standing here deciding my future? I'm in a prize to be won. And so we're kind of in the, the 3 little bears mode. This one's too hot, this one's too cold. And hopefully this take on a female character is just right. So obviously with this version of Jasmine, Call Me a Princess is just not going to work. But it's so late in the game, they don't really have an opportunity now to do a song for Jasmine. And what ends up happening is that, she basically gets half a song with a whole new world. And Linda Larkin does the talking voice of the character and Leah Song does the singing voice. Okay, jump ahead 2002. And Disney's California Adventure, which had opened the February of the previous year, is tanking. Nobody wants to go to it. So it was an effort to get Southern Californians to come out to the park. They announced they're going to do a brand new show in the Hyperion Theater. They were literally throwing things against the wall to see what would stick to try to get people to come into that theme park. So what they decided, they're going to do a 40-minute version of Aladdin. And Menken is like, oh, cool, because we never got the chance to do a song for Jasmine, and now here's my chance. So Alan actually writes this all by himself. And which is kind of interesting because Chad Beglin, the guy he'd eventually write Beglin would actually wrote the lyrics for the Broadway version of Aladdin, but for this iteration of the project, the 40-minute theme park version, he only wrote the book. And Menken, when he was looking for a song for Jasmine to sing, or more to the point, looking for a moment for where Jasmine would sing in the movie, or from the movie to do for the theme park stage show, hit upon that moment from the film where Jasmine releases the birds from the gilded cage and writes the song to be free. And Menken, if you look at what he does for stage shows, what he likes to do is circle back to the underscore that he's written for the movie, because that's the thing Menken does. He not only writes the songs, but he also creates the underscore for a lot of the movies he works on. But what he'll do is he'll find a melody that was used in the underscore and then turn that into a full-blown song. I mean, for example, out of the animated version of Beauty and the Beast, there's that scene where Maurice climbs up on Philippe and Belle says goodbye to him as he heads off to the fair. There's a chunk of music under there that for the Broadway show, they turned into the song No Matter What.
Right.
Likewise, for The Little Mermaid, there's that music from the moment where Scuttle flies into the castle and, hey, congratulations, you and Prince Eric are getting married. And that they turned into, in fact, I believe that section of the film score is called Wedding Invitation. They turned that into a song for for the second act called Beyond My Wildest Dreams. And I guess while we're talking about Alan Menken recycling, do we really want to bring up how Somewhere That's Green from Little Shop of Horrors really, there's a lot of part of your world that,
yeah, there is, yeah.
All right, moving on. Anyway, to Be Free, the interesting thing is the music for that. You've heard the music from that if you've seen the animated Aladdin. Remember the scene where it's Aladdin and Genie at the Oasis, and at one point the genie actually gets Pinocchio's face?
Yes.
That's where he pulled the music. But it's this chunk of music that he's written these lines to the effect of pushing the whole bird in a gilded cage metaphor. It's, freedom to stretch these golden wings, freedom to touch the sky, and how she talks about how she'd sacrifice riches beyond measure just to be a girl with a boy. What a perfect fantasy. And you get what's wrong with that, Drew, right?
Does not work.
Yeah,
does not work.
Because again, it's a woman who can't be happy unless she has a man.
Right.
All right. Now, jump ahead again. 2014, we've got the Broadway version of Aladdin being mounted. Again, as I mentioned, here's Menken writing lyrics with Chad Beglin, and the whole concept of the show was to try to take all of those songs that had been cut from the movie when Jeffrey Katzenberg said, lose the mom, and cut this song and that sort of thing, and finally pull these songs out of the trunk and give people the flavor and the fun of that original 40-page treatment. And Menken and Beglin really wanted to bring back Call Me a Princess. And they thought they found a way to do it in that when Jasmine stood on stage performing this number, she wasn't really a spoiled brat. She was pretending to be a spoiled brat. And this was the way that she scared off would-be suitors that, I don't want to get married to that. But here's the problem, that this is literally the first time you see Jasmine in the first act of the stage show. And they tried the show in Seattle and Toronto with Courtney Reed. Okay. But the problem was that when they finished the song, you could actually feel the audience sort of pull back from Jasmine, because it was like, well, geez, she's a liar. She's pretending to be something she's not. And it took them a long time after that to warm up to the character again. And Drew, not to belabor the double standard here, but given that Aladdin, almost from the moment he comes into the show and the second act is lying, he's Prince Ali Ababa pretending to be somebody he's not. And we love him for that, because he's the scrappy underdog. So it's one of these things where as they're coming into New York, they realize, geez, we need a new song for Jasmine. We want people to be in this character's corner. And so what they decide to do is, all right, where is she going? In the film, Jasmine, sneaks over the wall and goes out to check out, what it's like to be, a commoner in her father's kingdom. And it's like, well, let's write a song about that, about how she feels hemmed in. And this is where Beyond These Palace Walls comes from. Don't get me wrong, it's a perfectly serviceable, fun song. It would have been fun to see in the film, but as Drew got Drew got Alan Menken to reveal in your interview that Guy Ritchie wasn't really familiar with the Broadway show.
Yeah, didn't have a lot of interest in the Broadway show. It sounded like he didn't even know about it or what songs were a part of it.
Yeah.
So kind of interesting.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's sort of here was this brand new song. Now, I haven't seen the show, don't care how it fits in, that sort of thing. And so this is how we ended up with our fourth Jasmine song, which tried to be of the moment, tried to be of this era, which talking about how the song was influenced by the Me Too movement. And it just occurred to me that this has got to be a pretty epic chunk of mansplaining that I'm doing here. So I should probably shut up now. Drew, what's going on with your wonderful Mission Impossible podcast, Light the Fuse?
We are starting our 3-part series with Paul Hirsch, the great Paul Hirsch. So you have to listen to that, Jim. A lot of stories about Star Wars and the 2 Mission Impossible movies he edited. And we even get him to talk about John Hughes a little bit. So it's pretty great. It's a pretty great chat. So yeah, I strongly suggest you tune into that.
I cannot wait. Okay. Meanwhile, my side of the fence, well, we got the, well, you already mentioned Len Testa. So Disney Dish with Len Testa. In fact, I would imagine the next time we chat, we're going to be doing quite a bit of talking about Galaxy's Edge. Same thing with D&C and looking at Lucasfilm. I would imagine lots of discussion about Black Spire Outpost. We also have Universal Joint with Dustin Fuse, which will have absolutely no Star Wars info. And on the other hand, the Disney Merch podcast I do with Michelle Valladolid. I Want That. Boy, that's probably going to talk a lot about the merch. And then, of course, we have Marvelous Disney. If you could head over to iTunes and rate and recommend not only this show, but the Light the Fuse. If you get head over to Bandcamp and subscribe, that would be very helpful. Thanks for listening, folks, and we will be back soon.
Be sure to tune in again for another fine episode of Fine Tuning with Jim Hill and Drew Taylor.